Well, hello and welcome to PM Express. Robbery here, robbery there, robbery everywhere. But then you ask yourself, maybe once upon a time when Chroma was governing, there was just 6 million of us. Now today Nanado is governing and there's about 30 million odd of us. Is it a natural trajectory that, well, there would be more crime before, and therefore those of us, oh, the good old days, it wasn't like that? Does it hold? Is crime indeed on the rise, or is just that the information of crime which is on the rise? Which is which? The trend of crime as well. Are there more arms being used now, or are there more arms being reported now? What's actually the situation on the ground? And that's what we hear. Because time and time again, the IGP will come and say, look, you're safe, relax, go home, sleep. We are in charge, we're in control. But then you hear the reports and says, you know, it took 10 minutes for the police to come, 30 minutes for the police to come, and indeed the criminals have absconded. What is the issue? And why so much crime here, crime there, crime everywhere? And that's what we're going to do. In the first one, this next hour, we're going to have a crime education, and particularly what you should do to make sure you don't fall a victim. My name is Nana Zakwa, the fourth Chief of the Little Republic of Akwemwele. When I come back, talking to two fine gentlemen who know a thing or two about crime. Don't go away. Well, thank you very much for staying. Armed robbery on the rise. With me in studio, needs no introduction, my senior brother, Dr.Aning. Do I need to introduce him? Director of the Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan Center. You're welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much. So it's a pleasure.
Thank you. And then, you know, long time no see, but he's here. Superintendent Paul Avui, retired, fine policeman who's dedicated and has to advocate against crime. Soup, thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
I think I'll start with you, Doctor. Is it that, look, there's many of us, and therefore there's many crime, and that, look, there's no panic, there's no cause for alarm. It's just that too many people, by all means, there will be a bit more crime than necessary.
Well, yes, the population has grown, but if we had used good, commonsensical public policy planning strategies, we ought to have increased, as the population expanded and grew, a proportionate improvement, numbers, equipment, logistics of law enforcement officers, a much more sophisticated, you know, crime management techniques. We haven't invested in the police service. We haven't invested in law enforcement. The regulations and laws have not changed, and therefore, well, thank you very much for letting me see Superintendent Paul Avui, who 10, 15 years ago we actually discussed these issues.
Yes.
And I remember when Superintendent Avui introduced me to something that we call the Archer Committee Report. 1987, I think, the white paper in 1991, in which in 1991 we ought to have had, according to Justice Archer, 40,000 police officers. That ought to have increased.
1991.
1991.
40,000.
40,000. And anno 2018, we have 33. If you take those carrying ministerial speeches and pushing us off the road and everything, it's considerably less than the 33,000. Now, you take the vehicles that the police use, okay? They are not fit for purpose in most occasions because the roads are so bad, so they cannot do more than 15, 20 kilometers, much faster than if you go on a bicycle or jog. I mean, Superintendent Avui can jog much faster on those roads than these vehicles. So we have failed to protect ourselves in understanding how demographic expansions and unplanned urban expansions and availability of small arms pose particular law enforcement challenges. So the failure is our own making.
So how bad is it on the ground? Is it that the police are really handicapped, or is it a lethargic look? It's somebody, it's not me, so let it happen. What's the situation on the ground in the police force?
I think that the police service are officers who are trained, to enforce the law and handle crime. But you must begin by having a well and a clearly defined policing philosophy. If you have a clearly defined policing philosophy, you will be able to organize and structure your functions and operations along that line. But truly speaking, we don't have any policing philosophy. The philosophy we have now is more reactive. It happens before we get there, or it happens and we are called in. You see, so you don't clearly see the direction of the Ghana Police Service as far as crime is concerned, because most often it's like a war between the police and the criminals, we and them. But crime must be viewed as a social problem, which solutions must be found. You don't fight crime. If you fight crime, it means you are declaring war. So if you are declaring war, your enemy will also declare war. That's what's happening now.
Dr. Aning, I see this thing, and I think it's quite interesting. Robbery cases in Accra.
Yeah.
That's from January till date.
Yeah.
If you walk us through it, please.
Good. I mean, what I've done here over time is to say, look, what do the figures tell us from 2012? And from 2012, we see an exponential growth in all types of crimes. I mean, the 5 major crimes across this country. If we zoom down to Accra and responding to what Superintendent Avui has just said, the terminologies that we use are key. In fighting crime, which is both reactive and we'll get a response from those that we want to fight against, we need to be looking at, first, the use of intelligence. There's a great rhetoric about intelligence-led policing, which I don't think is happening right now. But I think what we are arguing for is an intelligence-led preventive type of policing that uses the knowledge that we have, the randomized analysis of the types of crimes that happens at what time and in what place. It's not rocket science. It can be done. So if we take Accra, for example, a metropolis that over the past, say, 10 years has increased in population. Let me come back to the population bit. In 1951, when we got self-rule, our population was almost the same as Denmark.
Okay.
60 years later, probably Denmark's population has increased only by about 1.5 million people. Ours has shot up from about 4-point-something million to 33 million. Denmark's police force has increased probably by a factor of 2. Ours has not increased very much. So we take Accra, for example. If we take, say, the January cases, for car robberies in 2017, there were 2. In 2018, in January, there were 10 car robberies. If we take residential robberies in 2017, there were 26. In 2018, 31. Robberies at work, 2017, 2. In 2018, 5. Street robberies, 21 in 2017, 43 in 2018. So we are seeing almost a 45% growth in the 5 major crimes in Accra within the space of a year. Okay? Now, a disaggregation of these crimes and our abilities to respond to them in terms of using the prosecutorial service even paints a much more damning picture. That if you look, less than 5% of all crimes in this country are solved. 82% of the crimes in this country are still, in inverted commas, being investigated. And this is not something that has just started happening in 2017. A disaggregation, and I think Superintendent Abuyi was very helpful when I came back into this country 17 years ago and I wanted to study policing and crime. If we go back to 17 years ago, the number of cases that are being investigated has consistently remained around 65% to 80%. So we have a backlog of cases that are unsolved, and it creates this impression that your ability to commit crime and escape and be free is pretty high. And it's not going to change. Well, let me repeat this point that I've consistently made. If we don't understand the demographic changes and how these demographic changes and increases leads to increasingly unplanned urban spaces in which we don't factor how best to police and regulate crimes, then we are going to see considerably much worse occurrences and more daring occurrences. Now, you and I have had this conversation here on several occasions. 2.3 unregistered guns in civilian hands. The materials are available. We did it together with the Ghana National Small Arms Commission. But there's no seriousness around these issues. The criminals understand this, they know this, and they're bringing the fight to us, just like Paul said.
Paul, let me bring you in, because Doc just mentioned something, and I was reading a paper which I got from Superintendent Paul Abuyi, the role, preventing crime and tackling its causes, the role of national government. And this is the paper he wrote 2005, and I keep saying that, you can just change the date and it will be absolutely, absolutely relevant. But because of the backlog, there was something you wrote in your paper with regards to the poor not getting in equal justice. As this, could that be where the backlog is coming from, where those who are not personalities or don't have too much of a voice, your case may not be that followed?
It's because let me say, for example, we have a law enforcement agency which do not carry out crime surveys or crime audits. You've not heard that before. This is a problem. So what do you do to tackle it? You must go to the ground and conduct surveys in the communities and do crime audits and be able to come out with some findings which will enable you plan on how to deal with, the rise in crime. These things are not happening. So it's like we just joking, we're joking. The governments have been joking. The police system has been joking. It's jokers because we are not serious. Just talk, And so, how do you have criminal investigators in villages and stations? One investigator will be having more than 20 cases on hand, or 30, one person. How efficiently is he going to carry on with that job? When there are emergencies, they all leave the office and go to join the uniform branch to carry out those duties and come back to the office. How can one person be able to investigate cases efficiently and then and carry it over to the courts for them to deal with such cases? It's not happening. So every day work is piling up. One CID man in the station, or one investigator or two, and they have a lot of cases to handle. So there'll be delay in the criminal justice system, and this is what is happening.
Doc, do you find that there's a new trend or a new kind of robbery, or is the same robbery that's just more of it?
No, the same robberies, or the
I ask this because forest bureaus have been complaining, a few banks have been hit, mobile money joints.
I mean, the banks have been hit since 2000 when we started this business. We don't look at businesses through security lenses. Mobile money operators use the cheapest metals to do their grills. There's no thinking about panic buttons. They think it's a waste of money. Those who commit these crimes are as equally smart and intelligent as the three of us in this room. Unfortunately, those of us who think we want to do business and the money business don't demonstrate a sensitivity and an understanding of the need to protect our monies and our investments. So you have somebody operating a mobile money business, operating a microfinance company, and they don't have a certain awareness of those who come into their businesses, how they behave, what to look out for, and what and how to report. So they are always taken by surprise. And because, as Paul has said, we don't do these audits. For the past 5 years, I've been pleading to start a quarterly crime survey. Nobody in this country wants to put in the 10,000 cedis a quarter, So what I'm sharing with you, I'm sharing these figures purely because you are my friend. Otherwise, I won't share it. We've got to invest in the security analysis that provides the intelligence and the proactive knowledge for businesses to protect themselves. I mean, I certainly don't want to use my money for my malt whiskey to do this analysis for private industry. So we've got to put in the money. The criminals know, and if you read, say, the Finder newspaper, the business newspaper, they have a clear idea where the monies are, how businesses are booming. Now, if you have a huge youth group, unemployed and increasingly unemployable, small arms easily available, police vehicles that are not fit for purpose because of the potholed roads, then the advantages for criminals to actually commit the crime and to be able to escape is very high. Now, when I speak this way, Dana, tomorrow the abuse will be targeted at me for frightening people. But I'm not a criminal. I'm only analyzing the crimes out there and providing some kind of solutions. So if we take, for example, the first quarter of 2017, there were almost 18,000 incidences in Accra alone. Out of these 18,000, almost 6,400 were recorded in January. 7.5% were sent to court. 2% were convicted, so terribly low conviction rates. 0.11 acquitted. 5.37 still awaiting trial. 11% undetected. And 82% still under investigation. Wow. Now, these are publicly available figures to a very large extent. So every sophisticated criminal knows that, as Paul is saying, without audits and surveys, the possibility that I'll be arrested is almost non-existent. So then we need to ask ourselves some very tough questions. Business...
Let me chip in.
Yes, please.
You have the police that complains of inadequate staff. And you have policemen watching banks. I mean, what kind of system is this? You are crying that you don't have men, but you have men to send to guard banks and collect money. When those people who pay taxes for the police service to be sustained are crying for security and protection, you have men who wake up from the house, go and be manning banks. At the end of the day or the end of the month, they collect money. Does the law allow the police to be commodified? Does the Constitution allow the police to be performing that sort of duty?
Now, I would say that, I mean, for security, is it not the best? So security for the bank? I mean,
we are talking of rule of law. The law says the government, the Constitution says what? That the state shall resource the police, to perform the traditional role of maintaining law and order. We do not have it in any police regulation that empowers the police to go and be doing bank guard duties. We only have in the law a provision which allows members of the public to get services from the police for escort duties, period. So that duty alone is unlawful, it's unconstitutional, because the Archer Commission said that duty was not correct in the white paper.
Not core function.
Yeah, so they should do away with that and get the banks to get their own security, probably with police training of those people who they will employ as their security. So when we are doing all these things, will the members of the public take you serious? Will the criminals take you serious?
Well, Nana, I think you made a very good point about whether there's a disproportionate insecurity felt by the poor. Mm-hmm. Now, if we look at the trajectories of crimes in February 2018, for example, and the selection of the targets, we would notice that the 20 forex bureaus, for example, that have been attacked in Accra and Tema have been selected with a very specific calculus in mind. Heavy traffic in the area, located in areas where the intakes are very heavy, fairly poor, security management of the shops themselves. So the most dangerous places have been Bachona, Spintex, and Community 18, and Entrasaco Junction. Now, these are places where people do a lot of transactions. Okay, so the argument that I'm making is that this is not rocket science. I mean, if we did the audits or quarterly crime surveys, we should be able to say, looking at the time, the area, the types of crimes committed, be able to begin to have an idea and to be a step ahead of the criminals. But when we have a reactive strategy that says, well, I doubt very much if we can plot what the police is plotting, how these things pan out or on the software. I doubt very much. So we've allowed the criminals to be a couple of steps ahead of us. But you see, I, unlike Paul, do not really blame the police service. Not that much. Because the rhetoric from the political side and the interference over 60 years has basically made them impossible to act. We have two oversight institutions that are fairly comatose.
Yeah.
The Police Council and the Parliamentary Committee on Interior and Defense. Now, when you have these crime figures I've put out here, the council has not assured any one of us that they have the basic understanding of the challenges of contemporary policing and what Ghana needs to secure our middle income status. We have a parliamentary committee that has not demanded from the council an annual report since 1992. I think they've demanded it only once. Okay? And in all this sense of fear that ordinary citizens face, Parliament is loudly silent. So the oversight mechanisms and techniques for ensuring that there's an understanding of the needs of the police service. I mean, we've just launched a mega transformation agenda for the Ghana Police Service. World class. You know, everything in this country must be done within 2 or 3 years, and then we become world class, blah, blah, blah. But to get there, we need investments. We need a strategic vision. We need targets. We need to be able to assess outcomes and impacts. You know, so the rhetoric is fantastic, but I think those who need to play these oversight functions are failing.
Let me read a little excerpt from what Paul read, and I think in tackling crime, this is the application of wisdom, discernment, and insight into the heart of things. In tackling crime should be the guiding principle and not over reliance on punishment and the power of the gun or the purchase and use of expensive security devices, equipment, or gadgets. Now, Paul, let me come to you before I bring the same question. I thought we got into the stage where we wanted expensive gadgets and big guns.
But that's not the answer.
No.
That's not the answer to crime. Because you don't read the mind of the criminal. It's difficult. You cannot. So you have to, there is a need to apply wisdom and insight and discernment. I mean, in the areas of doing a lot of things on the ground, which we still have to see, it's about trying to find out why are people going into crime, why, the root causes. All these things we have to be going into and then coming out with findings that we can plan, because if you want to go to war, you must study your enemy. You must know his strengths and weaknesses and come and sit down and plan on how to defeat that enemy. You don't just sit down and be talking, believing that the more arms you give, the more armaments, the more, the more equipment that you give will fight crime. No, they are not frightened by this method because it's not working.
No, it's not working.
They are also intelligent. They also plan.
Yeah.
If they want to attack, they will sit down and plan. They do surveillance. They gather information. They gather intelligence.
Yeah.
Like probably what happened today at the Royal, where they attacked this afternoon. It's something they have planned. It's something they have done a lot of surveillance, probably with someone inside giving them the information. And so they have to plan and work accordingly. So criminals are wise and intelligent, and they are ahead of us because we choose to talk and react without sitting down to plan.
We're going to take a quick break and come back and find out indeed what happened today, which is this Royal Motorcycle Company that was hit. To find out, well, they said it was planned, but could it have been random? You're driving past and thought, well, let's try our luck on this one. Or was calculated and said, look, we're going to hit this thing in a couple of weeks, so let's look at it. And if that was the case, you know, are you looking around to find out if there's a door or window that you've opened and you're not looking closely? Stay tuned, we're coming back. Well, thank you very much for staying on Tuesday morning. It was a breaking news about 9:30, 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning. There was breaking news that, you know, the armed robbers or armed criminals had gone into somewhere around North Kaleshi, a company that sells the Royal motorbike, and I'm sure wherever you are in Ghana, you've seen a Royal motorbike. And well, they went there, literally managed to get in there and rob the place and run away. And, you know, let me start with you, Paul. That you were suggesting that, look, it's something that they would have looked at. It's not that they were just driving by and decided, look, let's try our luck here.
No. Look at the way the guy, according to him, posed that he was coming to buy a motorcycle. So it's the work of an intelligent person. He will not just be driving by and they know what they are coming to do. and they planned. So it was executed, and they left the scene before the police came in. So, you know, criminals also have they work in syndicates. They have their intelligence units, because some people will recruit the people, they train them, and then let them do the job. At the end of the day, they get paid. You see, because sometimes we had instances of police officers being involved in armed robbery cases, and we have had a series of cases where some of them say some of the officers are on their payroll. So all these things can happen. You know.
Now, I mean, let me just sort of put some meat onto what Paul has just said. None of these attacks are randomized. These are well studied. There's reconnaissance. They know the level of possible resistance. They know the speed with which they need to vacate the area. They have intelligence about the speed with which, or the time frame within which the police services will arrive. And over the past 10 years, if we look at the 15 most prevalent crimes within the Ghana Police Service, armed robbery is the highest. You know, that is police officers or uniformed people within the GPS who involve themselves in crime. And we've had 81 of such instances.
Wow.
We've had 70 instances of motor traffic offenses by police officers. We've had 49 murder cases, 23 narcotics cases, and we've had cases of defilement, of fraud, of kidnapping, extortion, possession of firearms, stealing, threat of death, and causing harm. So, if we take a rational choice approach to crime, and we say, if we have these figures, how best do I get the intelligence to be able to execute my crimes as successfully as possible? Then the notion that these crimes are randomized becomes at best bogus. Two relates to the psychological makeup of those who are the frontline officers fighting these crimes. I mean, we need to show them up because there's a lot of fear. You know, the rhetoric about bulletproof vests, you can talk about the quality, body cams, and the 21st century, we are now talking about them. So we haven't invested enough in our law enforcement agencies to be able to protect ourselves. But it's not just about the investment into the police service. There is, in fighting crime, there's the judicial side. If we look at the numbers of prosecutors, and Paul has mentioned issues of investigations. If you take Accra, for example, a city of, 5 million?
Yeah, 5 million.
Yeah.
First quarter, close to 18,000 crimes last year. There are 30 prosecutors. You take Tamale.
18,000 incidents.
Crimes, yeah.
And there are 30 prosecutors.
30 prosecutors. In Tamale, 2, Cape Coast, 4, Koforidua, 8, Takoradi, 3, Wa, 1. No, let me say it like your man in Wa.
Wow. and they have 1.
Yes, 1. Wa has 1. So probably we should get him to go to law school. Sunyani, 5, Kumasi, between 13 and 14. So we, across all segments of the criminal justice system, we are not investing enough. And until we put in the investments, long term, it will have also a net negative impact on, economic investments coming into this country, and Ghanaians have the confidence to invest in our own economy.
I was just doing a simple division. I mean, I know
Yes.
when we're like about the issue
Yeah.
is averagely each prosecutor is handling 600 cases.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, yeah.
I mean, 18,000
Yeah.
incidents
Yeah, thereabouts,
with 30 prosecutors.
Yeah.
And average.
Yeah, average.
That's a lot of cases.
So where will you have time
Yeah.
to do something more efficient.
So 360 days in a year.
Yeah.
So literally 2 cases every day.
Well, I mean, if you take the legal holiday period.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But there's an update. So let's listen to ACP David Ekulu, Director General Public Affairs, Ghana Police.
2 people have been arrested and are assisting the police in investigations in respect of this morning's robbery at Royal Motors. They were made a few hours after the robbery was reported, so they are assisting us in investigation. It is too early yet to give further information, but for now, 2 people have been picked. And in addition to that, other arrests have also been made in respect of the Forest Bureau robberies that have been reported around the Spinters Road. Now, 9 people are currently in custody and also assisting us in respect of those Forest Bureau and the mobile money joint robberies.
Now, all these arrests you're talking about in relation to the attacks on the Forex Bureau, were all these arrests made today?
No, those arrests, those were earlier made within a week.
All right. So let's take with the arrest of the 2. Are these the people who were involved in the armed robbery this morning, or they're probably accomplices?
They have been questioned to enable us to determine the extent of their involvement, but we strongly believe that they are connected to the robberies that have happened. Meanwhile, the others are also on the run, but we are aggressively pursuing them so that we can get them to face the rigors of the law. Some items, including vehicles in connection with that robbery, have been intercepted, and they are currently with the police, and they are with vital tools in getting those who are behind it. So yes, some items have also been intercepted, and we are examining it to determine the connection, and they will also be very vital in getting the real perpetrators.
The police has been criticized about their responsiveness, how promptly they responded to the crime. What do you have to say about that?
Israel, I can say that our response time has improved tremendously, especially with the establishment of the 3 emergency command centers that we have at the headquarters, Kumasi and Tamale. This might be an exception that happened, but generally, if you look at the calls that we have received and the response time, there has been a tremendous improvement. We hope that in future, as we have plans to even extend some of these facilities, we'll be able to narrow that response time and respond in peak time when some of these issues happen. We are also aware of that concern at OEB, but the figures, we are in touch with the divisional commander to actually give us the figures that they have to confirm those figures. But we are aware that there have been some level of insecurity in that area. One, because of the wide nature of the place, and we are also aware of the logistic constraint of the Ibu police. But as I speak now, we have deployed this new Operation Calm Life vehicles there to actually assure the residents on also until the police station get their permanent vehicles. Vehicles are deployed from the regional headquarters to that area. So we have increased police presence around at EB and these environs. That borders Ashaman, Duduwa, and those
That was an earlier interview with Israel, and latest is that 2 arrests have been made in connection with the robbery at the Royal Motors. I mean, what can be said about this, and what can be learned? What should we learn from it?
Well, there's several things that we can learn from it, and I think ACP David Ekulu's approach is always very calming, which I think is very useful. But there's a very dangerous practice in this country of crime sites as crime entertainment sites. We love crime sites and we trample on the evidence and the forensics. The most annoying part being the Atomic Junction explosion, in which we basically, from top politicians to sellers to gossipers to petty thieves, just trampled on the side. And you see, if you see the clip here, don't people have anything to do than to stand around crime sites and watch? It is not entertainment. So that's one thing that I think we need to be careful about. And we need to be much stricter so that we don't destroy the forensic evidence.
But
yes, please.
The crime scene squads, how many do the police have? You see, it's like if it's somewhere in some part of Accra, then the police station in whose jurisdiction that crime is committed do not have crime scene officers. They'll have to fall on the CID headquarters or elsewhere to send, men to the ground. And before they get there, a lot of things, a lot of evidence is, it's already gone. So, I mean, we should have I always say it every now and then, that we should have a policing philosophy so that everything that we do, our plannings and our structures and our operations must be guided by that philosophy. But when you have a reactive type of policing which is not intelligence-led, these things will happen because you respond fine. But Accra, what is the plan in Accra? What about if the vehicles are not able to get to the scene because the place is poorly planned? You see? Yeah. So these are the things that they are talking of, not arms, not armament, not this. Planning, serious planning that calls for discernment and wisdom and insight.
Doc, let me take a quick break and then walk me through effective crime control measures. Yeah. Just a quick break and then you walk me through that. Well, robbery here, robbery there, robbery everywhere, but Doc was just going to walk us through effective crime control measures. Doc, what do we do?
I think I'll take it off from where Paul has left it. What is the policing philosophy or doctrine that we want to use? And how should this doctrine respond both to internal institutional structural stimuli and certainly external stimuli in terms of the crime that we are seeing? So we have here, and I think Paul has contributed to developing this over time from our conversations, a 6-point strategy looking at the service itself. But in the beginning, politicians setting the grand strategic vision. Policing doctrine and philosophy, as Paul and I are saying, cannot occur without a national security framework, which we don't have, which we've bandied about, we've spoken about. Different ministers have intimidated us, intimidated our friends in the military who thought, we had to have this philosophy. So there's a certain political lacuna in understanding how security management and policy making must be done. So first is the government's own understanding of what national security strategy must look like. And it is within this broad framework that is policing doctrine or philosophy must then fit. Looking to issues of logistics, manpower, training, promotions, gender policy, role of you and I, visibility. Then, of course, there's the legal side, the prosecutorial side. Looking at increasing the numbers of attorneys or the prosecutors, as we've discussed earlier on. Record keeping in this country is a big problem. We don't talk about it. But record keeping is so bogus that it's just shocking. So we need to improve that. That then improves the reduced space and time that we spend on these cases. Then, of course, there's the public, focusing on crime reporting, the media involvement, great work that you guys are doing. And then, of course, private business inputs, into trying to fund this. And, of course, all these come together to change the public perception of the service. Then we have securocrats, both on the civilian side and on the uniform side, looking at issues of crime service. Until we do this crime service, and probably I should go to the bank and borrow some money, and we should do this service and then sell it to government. Well, I just don't get it. So regular crime service and and the publication and audits demonstrating what is changing and how things are going. Then we need to certainly improve, Paul, our small arms legislation.
Yeah.
Ancient, not fit for purpose. Totally. And then evaluations. Paul will tell you, I don't know how many of these 33,000 officers have a contract that says this is what you need to achieve at the end of the year. Okay, so we've got to bring in public, management strategies. And then we need to be able to assess the impact of all these things that we've put into the basket, shaking it and throwing it on the table. So there are a couple of things that can be done, but certainly, Paul.
And then, you see, when there is disaffection and the morale of the officers are not very good, there is apathy. If the service is bogged with politically motivated appointments and promotions and what we call it, contracts and all these things, it creates a lot of disaffection. If a very senior person will be there and someone who's junior is elevated, and that person is to take instruction from that person, I mean, it won't work. So these things are happening. Too much politics in the police service, promotions, appointments, not based on merit. And so, well, let us carry on. That is what is happening now. And all these things must be looked into so that the laws are properly regulated in a way that these things are there. Nobody comes to be the head of the service and change it. It's there. These things are not there. The Police Service Act is only 18 pages. Good for nothing, a cake. So everybody comes and run the service like his own property. And we are not leading the government. We are not even educating the public on these things. Because prevention begins by education. How often do you hear policemen in schools, colleges, here and there, streets, educating people on personal security and other things that border on security? It's not happening. We need like he said, the government must be at the forefront, but the police must also show leadership in all these matters.
But one of the things that disturbs me when we talk about security policy making and management is that the infrastructure is there, the institutional processes and mechanisms are there. One of the greatest institutions with respect to policing, and Paul knows this, we've spoken about this several times, is the Police Council. Established precisely because in the aftermath of the Nkrumah coup, Dr. Buzia traveled the length and breadth of this country and understood the role, the frontline role of policing in creating an enabling environment in which businesses will flourish and lives and properties will be protected, and therefore changed the name from a force to a service and argued for the establishment.
Because of time, let me just chip in here. Are we overwhelmed or we can turn things around?
Well, we can turn things around with proper leadership, focused attention, and understanding of the issues and understanding of policing. We can turn it around. Absolutely no problem.
It's not out of hand.
No, far from it.
It can't be done.
It can be done.
Discernment, insight.
Because you mentioned about areas where cars can't get to, chiefs who just sell their land, start their own from somewhere, don't even reserve land for police station, just sell completely everything, but yet they need police service. But you still think, in spite of all that, you can spin it around.
Have you 60 years of independence, have you ever heard of a national dialogue on policing or crime prevention? It has never happened. It has never happened. So if these things are not happening, how are you going to get the proper structure to deal with these situations?
All too soon, that's what time would allow us, but I'm sure this is just the tip of the iceberg. I want to say thank you so much to my gentlemen, and particularly, for you sharing this, facts with us. I'm sure those who have ears have heard it. I always give you this number, 024-366-2001, 024-366-2001. 2001. That's Dante's Fashion. They supply the shirts for the show, so give them a call and get yourself one shirt. But Dr. Aning, thank you very much, and Superintendent Retired Avui, thank you so much too. It's been educative and it's been very, very insightful. We'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you for watching.